Hi guys, in this video we will look at phrasal verbs. Now phrasal verb is nothing but a verb plus an adverb or a verb plus a preposition combination, right? We will understand what a phrasal verb is through an example and also learn how one phrasal verb can have different meanings in different contexts, and also learn how the knowledge of phrasal verbs can be applied in our exam. Basically, how to identify an error pertaining to phrasal verbs and spot the error, or how to identify the right answer option because we are familiar with phrasal verbs in either a fill in the blank question or a closed passage question. Yeah. So for that, the verb that we are going to focus on is put, P-U-T. Let's get started. So as mentioned, the phrasal verb that we are going to take a look at is put, P-U-T. Let's look at the example sentences and understand this phrasal verb. We already mentioned that a phrasal verb is a combination of a verb plus a preposition or a verb plus an adverb, right? I've just written prep for a short form of preposition, but let's continue. Let's look at our first context. Ankita put her suggestions across during the meeting, right? Ankita put her suggestions across. The phrasal verb that we're looking at is put across. Sometimes the phrasal verb comes as it is, or sometimes it is divided by the object, right? The object comes in between. Ankita is the subject. Ankita put forth what, or put across what? Suggestions is the object. So put across is the phrasal verb. So in this context, what does it mean? Basically, she gave her suggestions, right? She suggested it. Banu put forth an idea. Put forth, right? Banu is the subject and idea is the object. Banu put forth what? Right? An idea. That's the object. So put forth here means what? She offered it for consideration, right? So she's given an idea. She wants you to consider the idea that she's given. So put across and put forth more or less same meanings, right? Where you're either giving an idea or you're giving or providing suggestions for consideration. My husband and I put together a new bookcase. Are you able to identify the phrasal verb? Put together, right? That's our phrasal verb. My husband and I put together a new bookcase. Again, put together here means what? Constructed or created the bookcase. Raj put off paying the bills. Put off is our phrasal verb here. What can put off mean here? He probably postponed it. He didn't pay the bills when it was required to be paid, right? Or he delayed the payment, right? Put off, postpone or delayed. I am put off by people eating with their mouths open. It's the same phrasal verb, but in a different context. Let's see if the meaning is different, right? I am put off by people eating with their mouths open. Seems like these guys don't have any manners, right? Imagine somebody just stuffed themselves and and they're not closing their mouth and eating. I know a lot of people who do that, right? They don't eat like this. They eat like, right, with their mouths open. It's very annoying, it's very irritating. So here, put off obviously means either it repels me or, right? That's the only meaning that I can think of. So let's write the meaning so it registers for us. So Anita put her suggestions across, meaning put across can be gave, provided, put forth, to offer for consideration, put together, created, constructed, put off paying the bills meaning he delayed or postponed it. I am put off by people eating with their mouths open. It repels me. Repulse. Or repulses me. Yeah. So put across. Across is a preposition. So verb plus preposition. Put forth, adverb. Forth is an adverb, right? So verb plus adverb. Put together, again, verb plus adverb. Put off, verb plus adverb. Same thing, verb plus adverb. So it's either a verb plus preposition or a verb plus adverb combination. Let's look at more context for the verb put. So far you've learned 4 phrasal verbs with regard to put, right? We have put across, put forth, put together and put off. Let's move on. Let's take a look at our next set of example sentences. Kiran put out the fire. Are you able to identify the phrasal verb? Put out, verb plus adverb combination, right? What can the meaning be here? He put out the fire, meaning he extinguished the fire. The casino near my place put out a drunk from the bar. So probably this guy who has been drinking or who's drunk excessively was causing a lot of nuisance, so they had to get rid of him, right? So the casino near my place put out a drunk from the bar means expel, right? To get him out. Our company puts out a weekly newsletter. So our company every week goes ahead and publishes a newsletter, right? Puts out in this context means to publish. So did you notice how put out, one phrasal verb, has different meanings in different contexts, right? Remember we said we will look at how one phrasal verb can have different meanings in different contexts. So put out, looking at these 3 example sentences, we know has 3 different meanings: extinguish, expel and publish. Let's look at the next context. My team put the project through on time. Remember I said the phrasal verbs can also be separated where the object comes in between, right? So we know that my team is the subject, the project is the object. What's the phrasal verb? Put through, right? My team put through the project. So put the project through on time. So what can the meaning be in this context? Which means basically they brought it to a successful end, right? They were able to successfully complete the project on time. So that's the meaning. So put through in this context means to come to a successful or to bring to a successful end. Rohit put me through a lot of trouble. Again, we have Rohit who's the subject, me, I'm the object, put through, right? So in this context, what does it mean? Because of Rohit, I had to undergo all this trouble, right? So to cause, to undergo, put through in this context means yeah. Let's look at our last one. The operator put me through on the office line. The operator, again we have the subject, object, put me through, put who? Me through on the office line. What can it mean? Connected me, right? To make a telephone connection for me, right? So in these 3 contexts, put through, we again see the same phrasal verb having different meanings. In the first context, it is to bring to a successful end. In the second context, it's cause to undergo. In the third context, it's just to make a telephone connection, right? So we need to constantly keep this in mind, that one, the pointer to note is phrasal verbs can come together or it can also be separated by an object, as we saw in the example sentences. Another one is one phrasal verb can have different meanings in different contexts. Let's move on to other example sentences. Let's continue with our example sentences. Anu put aside Ankita's suggestion until the next meeting. Put aside, right? That's our phrasal verb, verb plus adverb. Anu put aside Ankita's suggestion until the next meeting. So what can the meaning be? She probably is not going to consider it until later, right? So to stop considering something until later. Why don't you put aside your friend's sarcastic comments. So somebody was sarcastic, his or her friend was sarcastic to her. So the question is, why don't you put aside your friend's sarcastic comments? What can put aside mean here? Just disregard it, right? Or forget about it. So put aside, the phrasal verb we saw in these two example sentences. One meaning is to stop considering until later. The next meaning is to disregard or to forget about it. We need to put all negative thoughts away. We, subject, need to do what? To put, negative thoughts is our object, put away, right? That's our phrasal verb. Again, verb plus adverb combination. We need to put all negative thoughts away means what? So in this context, the meaning is again discard. Right? Negative thoughts is not good for us. So discard them. He was put away in an asylum due to his deteriorating mental illness. Put away. What can the meaning be? He was confined in a prison, right, for probably mentally affected people. So a mental health institution, right? So here in this context means to confine. So to confine to prison or a mental health facility. Right? So that's what put away means. What about the last one? Wipe down the dish rack once the dishes are put away. So basically, usually, people wash the dishes and there might be a dish rack. So what they're saying is once the dishes are dry, you put them back in its place and then you wipe down the dish rack. Right? So wipe down the dish rack once the dishes are put away, meaning taken and kept it in its proper position. Right? Right, that's what it means. So here, put away, again, the first meaning is discard, the second meaning is to confine to prison or a mental health facility, and the third is placing something in its proper place, the intended place for it, right? So are you following? Let's look at some more example sentences. Let's look at the context. Vishal put in a good word for me. Put, verb plus preposition combination. Vishal put in a good word for me. So what can the meaning be here? Introduced as a conversation, right? So while he was introducing me, he said some good things about me, right? So he put in a good word for me. I put in 8 hours at the office. Put in again in a different context. I put in 8 hours at the office. Office means what? In this context, it's spending that time in a specific location or job here, right? Because it's specified at the office. So to spend time at a location, in this context, it's the job. I put in a call to the CEO of TalentSprint. So here it's just, you made the telephone call to the CEO, right? To make a telephone call. So put in 3 different meanings. Please put down the items needed from the shop. Verb plus adverb combination. Please put down the items needed from the shop. So what can this mean? Write down, make a list. Vikram put down rumors of a ghost in the house. Again, put down. To make something ineffective, right? He's saying there's nothing like that. There's no ghost in the house. Simply don't just create rumors. Don't spread rumors, right? So he put down rumors. So put down means to render ineffective, to make ineffective. I had to put my dog down. Again, the same phrasal verb separated by an object, which is the dog here, right? I had to put my dog down. What can this mean? I had to kill my dog using euthanasia, mercy killing. right? That's what it means. So I had to put my dog down, maybe because the dog had a condition, where it was probably, it would suffer more if it continued in that condition. So it's better to, kill the dog using euthanasia, right? So in this context, it means my uncle put me down for failing the course. Again, separated by the object me, put down. My uncle put me down for failing the course. So the context is negative, so it cannot be a positive meaning. So obviously it means either he humiliated me, he belittled me, he criticized me. Yeah, it could be anything. Last one. Let's put this blunder down to inexperience. Let's put this blunder down to inexperience. Again, separated by the object blunder. Let's put this blunder down to inexperience, meaning what? Let's attribute this to inexperience, right? Like saying that, the reason why this mistake happened is because of inexperience. Let's say that's the reason, right? So you're attributing this blunder to inexperience. The reason was inexperience. That's why this person made a mistake. Blunder means mistake. So let's put this blunder down to inexperience. The meaning here is attribute, right? And for those of you who don't know the meaning of attribute means you're regarding something as the cause. Okay. So again, put in 3 different meanings. Put down, we saw 5 different meanings, right, in different contexts. So it's constantly important for us to understand these phrasal verbs in different contexts, because that's one way in which we can register meaning. John put on his coat. Put on is our phrasal verb, verb plus preposition combination. So what can it mean? It just means that, right? He put his clothes on. In this context, it's a coat. To don. Don means not our don in the movies, right? To don means to put on something. Rahul put on the brakes. So in this context, what can put on mean? He applied the brakes. Sneha put on an English accent. So what can it mean? So obviously when you're speaking to Sneha, you know that she is suddenly talking with a Brit accent, right? So she's assuming to be English, or she's assuming to be like she's from the UK or the US, right? So Sneha put on an English accent. So to assume effectively, maybe she's doing a good job of it, okay? Are yaar, you have put on weight. And did you know that are yaar is being introduced in the Oxford Dictionary, right? It's there. Are yaar, you have put on weight. So what does in this context put on means? Add. My roommates put on a variety show for Dasra, pronounced either way, I guess. So my roommates put on a variety show. So what does it put on here means? They organized the event or the show or performance, whatever, right? So again, we see the phrasal verb put on with different meanings. Don, apply, to assume effectively, add, to organize a show, event or performance, and I'm sure there are other meanings as well. But let's look at the next couple of sentences and see what are the phrasal verbs we have with the verb put. I put my friend up for the night. I, subject, my friend is the object, put up is our phrasal verb, right? Verb plus adverb. I put my friend up for the night. So here again, what can it mean? Basically providing lodgings for your friend, right? Giving your friend accommodation. Jeevan put up the antiques in his sale. Jeevan put up the antiques in his sale, in his house. Basically, he's offering the antiques for sale, right? To offer for sale. My neighbor put up a good fight. My neighbor put up a good fight means what? engaged in it. Sirisha is putting up for project manager to the committee. Sirisha is putting up for project manager to the committee. What can it mean? Basically, you're offering yourself, for that particular position or job. Sandeep was in the garden putting a fence up. Again, in this context, a fence is the object, separating the phrasal verb putting up. So, Sandeep was in the garden putting a fence up, meaning building. Vinita put up a notice about the new leave policy. So, basically, she just fixed the notice upright on the wall or on the board, notice board, right? So, Vinita, so to fix something, my parents put up money for the convention. Convention is basically just an assembly or a gathering for a particular purpose, right? Usually, it will be either political or church or some fraternal thing, okay? So, put up here means basically providing funds in advance for that particular gathering or assembly, right? You don't have to put up with the constant abuse. You don't have to put up with the constant abuse here. Put up means don't keep, you don't have to be in that situation, right? Deal with it. That's what it means. So, this phrasal verb put up, quite a lot of meanings, right? In fact, how many meanings? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 8 meanings. I think this is one phrasal verb where, you can use it in a variety of ways. So, having looked at just that one word put, do you remember all the phrasal verbs that we just saw with put? Quite a lot, right? So, imagine how extensive phrasal verbs are and how important it is for us to have knowledge on phrasal verbs. How is it relevant? We're going to take a look at that right now in terms of application to our exam, right? In questions like whether it's spot the error or sentence improvement, how do we figure out or identify the right answer with respect to phrasal verbs? We're going to take a look at that. So, we're going to apply knowledge of phrasal verbs in this context. As soon as you see this, you know it's sentence improvement, right? Let's read the context. Since the records are missing, the possibility of paying more than one compensation for the same piece of land cannot be ruled aside, right? The word that is underlined is aside and we have options. Option A, out, option B, off, option C, away and option D, in. So, we'll have to see is ruled aside. So, this is our supposedly phrasal verb. Rule is the verb we need to figure out from the options, right? Whether it could be an adverb combination or it could be a preposition combination, right? So, we need to know which one will actually fit in this context. What about ruled aside? I've heard of kept aside, keeping something aside. Like I can keep the cake aside because I want to eat it later, right? I might have bought the cake in the afternoon sometime, but I'm keeping it aside. Maybe I want to have it as dessert after dinner, right? So, but ruled aside, incorrect. There is no phrasal verb like ruled aside. But what meaning do we need in this context? Let's look at that. Since the records are missing, the possibility of paying more than one compensation for the same piece of land cannot be ruled something, right? So, the meaning I need in this context is, since this has happened, we cannot stop considering this as a possibility. It cannot be. The right phrasal verb bringing in that meaning is rule plus the adverb out. Ruled out. So, ruled out means to stop considering that whatever it is, something as a possibility. So, if I say it is unlikely that Sagar will run for Prime Minister, but the possibility cannot be ruled out. What am I saying? We just can't, we assuming that, hey, Sagar won't run for the Prime Minister, but you never know, it might happen, right? So, the possibility of that happening cannot be ruled out. Are you following? So, this All the other ones, ruled off, ruled away, not the right options here given the context and the context meaning. Rule in means something that will definitely happen, right? It's I think it would be contrasting, ruled out. Okay, anyway, so are you following? So my knowledge of this phrasal verb ruled out helped me identify the right answer option, right? I know that phrasal verb, I know what meaning it brings to a context, and in this context, this is the right one. Are you following? Let's look at one more. As soon as you see this context, you know it's a spot the error question. Let's read. I was really put out by the way he eats with his mouth open. Are you able to identify the phrasal verb immediately? Yes. Put out. Remember the meanings we saw? Someone putting out the fire, extinguishing it, or someone putting out somebody from a particular place, expelling them, or somebody putting out, like a weekly newsletter, publishing, right? Those are not the meanings this context requires. What meaning does this context require? So this person obviously is causing some sort of a repulsion, right? Because he's eating with his mouth open. Are you able to recollect this example? What phrasal verb did we use in this context? Put off, right? It repels you, this action of this person eating with the mouth open. So the error is in part B, where you change put out to put off. Are you following? So likewise, even if it's fill in the blanks or any other question types, knowledge on phrasal verbs is going to really help you identify the right answer option quickly, right? That's why it's important for us to know as many phrasal verbs as possible. I mean, take the verb take, right? So many phrasal verbs with take. Take after, take away, take up, take in, take on, take back, take apart, right? So you will need to learn to quickly associate words to verbs, right? And see what are the different meanings that these verbs have in various contexts. That's what you need to do. So in terms of expanding your vocabulary, phrasal verbs play a very integral part in that. And all you need to do is expand your knowledge on as many phrasal verbs as possible, right? Expand your knowledge on as many phrasal verbs as possible. So this brings us to the end of this particular session, phrasal verbs. We're going to look at some more interesting concepts with respect to vocabulary. I'll see you guys in the next session.